Family, welcome to another episode of
welcome
the Love of Each Other. I am Camille, Lord Wyatt.
And I am Ada Marie Babineaux, and we are from Ubiquity Trial Period 1985. We have a show for you today. Talking about the background stuff.
I'm talking about some sisters from our family who have carried us into the 21st century. They have brought more family members into the circumference that is Ubiquity, and we're so excited to have them. Let's first welcome Mawlyah Salam Cease. She came into Ubiquity in 1990. Then we have Angela McMillan, who came into the Ubiquity in 1997. And our dear Tiffany Williams, she came into the Ubiquity in 1989. Welcome, family.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us.
How y'all doing?
Doing great. Doing great.
The first thing I want, because as Ubiquitarians, we are in many places at the same time, I want each of you to introduce yourself and tell me where you're currently from and living. Malia, would you go first, sister?
Sure. Mawlyah Salam Cease, a native Detroiter. And of course, I came to Howard in 1989 as a freshman, stayed there for 25 years, even well after graduation, kind of built a life there. And I only just came back home to Detroit in 2015. So I've been here exactly a decade now. Wow. I'm working as a reentry program manager, supporting returning citizens coming home from incarceration, and been able to help close to 2,000 brothers and sisters over the last several years.
Keeping that community service pillar. Go ahead.
Yes, Miss Tiffany.
Greetings. My name is Tiffany. Akitah is my family name, Williams. And I reside in Baltimore, Maryland. I have lived here since 2008. But I am a native of Chicago, Illinois, South Side, born and raised. I came to Howard University in the fall of 1986. I joined Ubiquity Incorporated in the spring of 1989. I graduated from Howard University in 1991, and I have worked in mental health and other social services throughout my post-college career.
Okay.
Some more pillars, community service. Go ahead.
Miss Angela.
Yes, greetings everyone. I'm Angela McMillan, and I currently reside in Washington, D.C. I'm originally from West Haven, Connecticut, and I came to Howard University in 1996. And I'm currently an educator here in Washington, D.C. for well over two decades. And I'm also an Akomfo, or a priestess in the Akan spiritual tradition. And I'm happy to be here.
We're so excited to have these ladies who led trial periods. And I want Ada to ask about the trial period, because that's a very important part of becoming a member of Ubiquity.
You know, before I go to that, I'm just curious, before we jump into that, I'm just curious to find out what brought you all to Ubiquity. And you can go one at a time or jump in. Why Ubiquity? Were you on campus, shopping around? I mean, what sparked your interest to join this organization first?
I'll jump out. Maybe I should go in age order.
Okay, go ahead, girl.
As I stated, my name, when I came to Howard University, was Tiffany Jones. I came from the south side of Chicago, Illinois. Considering the economic changes we are witnessing currently under a new presidential administration, I want to say I come from working class background. My mother was a U.S. Postal Service employee. My dad worked for Ford Motor Company. And as Gen X African Americans, our elders wanted us to go to college. They wanted us to go to college. They did not want us to work in factories. They did not want us to work in manufacturing. They had migrated from the South, particularly if you speak of Chicago and you speak of the Southern migration, We had migrated from the South. My grandparents, their parents, and their parents were farmers, sharecroppers, and they did not want us to work in manufacturing. So we were encouraged to seek higher education. We were encouraged to go to college, and my aunt was encouraging me throughout, maybe from middle school into high school, to consider a certain all women's African American college. And I went to all girls Catholic high school, to which I said to her, after going to all girls Catholic high school, I'm not going to go to girls college.
Mm-hmm.
And through a process, I considered and was accepted to Howard University. And as I said, entered Howard University in 1986, fall of 1986. And stepping on campus, I knew I had made the right decision to go to Howard University. And during that time, the mid 80s, it was an interesting time. There was still a lot of political activism at Howard around freeing South Africa, around current events that we hear now about freeing Palestine. Those were issues that were still active at Howard at that time. But still, it was a kind of a materialistic time of partying and Gucci and Louis Vuitton and parties, etc. But I was always drawn, I think, to both, but I was still always drawn to my African American roots, and began seeing, if you want to call it advertising, that what we would call it now, Ubiquity is coming on a billboard somewhere or a corkboard, or it was spray painted somewhere. And I wondered, what is Ubiquity? And went to an event and learned what Ubiquity was, that it was not necessarily a Greek letter organization. It was a coeducational male and female organization dedicated to the uplift of Black men and Black women and community service and fellowship. And I was very interested in that, and went through what we're going to talk about, the trial period in spring 1989. And what was notable about that time period is Ubiquity had not been very active on Howard's campus for a couple of years. Members had graduated or went into their professions. So there actually were very few active members of Ubiquity on campus during that time. And my trial brothers and sisters completed the trial process. We completed with 7, 2 men and 5 women. So we called ourselves the 7 principals, after the 7 principals of the Nguzo Saba.
Before you go too far in, I want to just get a sense of what attracted you. Like, what attracted you?
What attracted you?
Angela, and yeah, what attracted you? Like,
jumping
why?
in. So yes, coming back to that, what attracted me were the principles of Blackness.
Okay.
Were the principles of the African American experience. As I said, coming out of Chicago, I can go back to that. That
okay.
Understood what the Black family was. I understood what our American experience in this country was. And not to say that no other organization reflects that, but to say that Ubiquity had a special take on that experience that I found attractive. I will jump to someone else. One of the things that we were charged with when we became members of Ubiquity, and there had not been current members of Ubiquity undergraduates, was bringing in a new generation. So yes, after myself and my trial period, in the trial period we'll talk about later.
Okay, Malia,
was other people that came behind me. Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to jump to.
No, you're fine.
What piggybacking off what she said? What attracted you?
So we had a similar campaign. Since we're so close, we're only a year apart in our trial periods. I started seeing the same Ubiquity is coming for weeks. Then Ubiquity is here. And then and there was also really another intriguing flyer or piece of marketing material that said, "Are you ashamed of Africa?" And it had the outline of Africa and the words inside. And so me having been raised in an Afrocentric household, I was like, well, hell no, I ain't ashamed of Africa. But I was like, that's a really intriguing question to be asking. This was just the entrance of the African medallions. Hip hop culture was at an all-time high. And there was this, you had X-Clan, you had Public Enemy, and this resurgence and entrance in our culture. So that definitely piqued my interest. Then shortly thereafter, I'd say early spring, I started seeing the Nguza Saba week signs. And I think TP 89 was the first trial period that started hosting Nguza Saba actual organized recruitment activities. Am I right?
Nguza Saba week, yes,
Nguza
was our
Saba week.
creation,
And so it
correct.
was 7 days of activities that basically were like a microcosm of what Ubiquity is. And so just by attending those, particularly the open house through one of those weeks, I remember it being held in Blackburn Gallery Lounge and coming there and Sister Demita, aka Falayan, greeting me at the door. I'm like, ooh, I just love her energy. If you've ever met Demita, you just be like wowed anyway. It's like she's a cover of an Essence magazine. This sister was like just so warm and welcoming. So the thing that attracted me to Ubiquity, the Afrocentric piece was cool, but I was already exposed to that, so it wasn't a huge thing for me. But I would say the family aspect.
So, Malia, I have a question before we get Angela's perspective. What made you go to Howard? Why did you choose Howard?
So that's a long story. I was almost about to go to the other HU. I can't lie. I went to
Hampton. What other HU? There's only one.
There is only one HU for real.
But Howard, believe it or not, was a little bit more generous with the scholarship money. I also was very close to going to Wilberforce. I always knew I was going to go to a HBCU. There was no doubt in my mind. But the clincher is that both my mom and I got accepted to Howard. She got accepted into a master's program.
Wow.
Studies, and I got accepted into undergrad in the art department. And so we just piled a 26-foot U-Haul truck up with all our life possessions and both moved here. So that's also how I ended up staying in DC so long with my mom.
That's that Black girl magic, for real. Angela, tell us, how did you get to Howard? What, coming from Connecticut? We both New Englanders.
Okay.
By the way, you know, there's very little consciousness up our way. But what made you get to Howard? How'd you do that?
Yes, so I came to Howard. I knew I was coming to Howard ever since I was a freshman in high school. And what got me interested in looking at particularly HBCUs was the show A Different World. So I, again, came to Howard in 96. So A Different World was the late 80s, early 90s. So you had a lot of media that was really portraying HBCUs. So not only the movies like School Days or even shows like Martin where they would wear HBCU paraphernalia. It was particularly A Different World where when I saw that show, I said, I am going to an
Howard.
HBCU.
I got to have the Black
first
experience.
Was an HBCU. I wasn't sure which one, but I knew I was going to an HBCU. It took a couple of years, probably I was in probably 6th grade when I knew I was going to an HBCU.
And
in
6th grade?
School, in 6th grade. In middle school, I don't know if it was through reading the autobiography of Malcolm X. I read that in 8th grade, and that changed my whole perspective on everything. And I knew I was going, I think around that time, it had to be around that time that I said I was going to Howard. Because when I entered high school, this guidance counselor, he remembers me. He said, when I first met you and I asked you, what college are you going to? You said, and this is what I said, I'm going to Howard University, majoring in history and African American studies. I did major in history, also majored in education, and that's what brought me to Howard.
Wow! And how did you get to Ubiquity?
Before you go there though, because I like the way Tiffany set up about her parents. Were your parents, or were you first generation? Were your parents working class parents? I mean, I think that was because Malia's mother was already conscious and whatever, but okay, so working class parents.
Working class. I did have family members who've been to college.
Okay.
But in terms of my immediate family, my brother went to Yale. So West Haven is right next to New Haven. So technically I'm from New Haven, Connecticut. I had a brother who went to Yale. And so I did have, other family members who have gone to college. And a sister who went to an HBCU as well. So there was that awareness of HBCUs, but it was a different world where I knew, like without a shadow of a doubt, I'm going. And I was going to Howard. And I made sure that throughout my high school trajectory that everything I did would land me at Howard University. And it did. So
and how did you find Ubiquity?
Yes, I was a freshman at Howard. Yeah. And I was in the Tubman Quad. And one of my floor mates, LaQuise, she showed me this flyer that she received, and she's also my trial sister, by the way. She showed me this flyer about an organization called Ubiquity, and the flyer was who we are, what we are, and why we are. Mm-hmm. And on this flyer, there was a few things that stood out to me. I remember seeing a part. I saw, the service, scholarship, service, community service, academic excellence, but particularly this pillar on strengthening the relationships between Black men and Black women.
All day.
And that stood out to me because I never saw an
Absolutely.
organization
That's right.
at that point that would even have that as a focus. I might have heard that topic come up in various, forums.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of an organization having that as a focus, that really stood out. And I said, wow, this is really important. And I want to be a part of this. Also, on that flyer, it spoke about family. And not just family in the sense of, being part of an organization, but family beyond the organization. So it mentioned, we share weddings, birthdays, baby showers, like just things that we normally just naturally do outside of college, outside of an organization. When I read that this organization shares in that with each other, it affirmed my vision of what college was like, and that you would meet people that will become lifelong friends and that you would share this life journey with. And those were the two major things that attracted me to Ubiquity.
Oh, beautiful, ladies.
Mawlyah, I want to jump in, and I may have a copy of what maybe you and Sister LaQuise saw. So it does say Ubiquity is a social and communal organization based on two pillars. One, improving the relationship between the Black man and the Black woman by positive social interaction, academic excellence, and knowledge of self.
Woo!
Two,
It's powerful.
developing this union of the Black man and the Black woman and involving it in community service. 2A, for the cultural upliftment of the community by maintaining a high degree of cultural awareness within the organization and by sponsoring cultural awareness programs. B, a true brotherhood and sisterhood within our organization, but also within our community.
Okay.
A family recognizing the African concept of the extended family.
Okay, I have a question before Ada, before you go into them becoming chairs. So, with that said, Tiffany, did you find that you experienced that while you were becoming, as you were becoming? Did you find that was occurring?
ABCderians.
I would say
Becoming
absolutely.
ABCderian, you're asking?
Right.
Yes, when you were.
Did I experience what I read as a
Yes.
ABCderian and as
Yes.
a Ubiquitarian? I would say absolutely.
Okay.
So I want to just
Angela?
piggyback. I would just piggyback just briefly. Oh, but
Go
just
ahead.
briefly,
Go
I would
ahead.
say, Angela, I'm not sure if what I read is what you all saw. But hopefully that those principles, and we'll talk about those principles and the foundation of our organization, no matter what year someone came into Ubiquity or became an ABCderian, hopefully those principles should have been passed on.
Yeah, the reason why I was asking is because it seems that you ladies were pretty conscious, and before you even got to the campus.
That's what it sounds like.
It wasn't a stretch for you to encounter.
It wasn't
this.
a stretch.
So yeah. So
I would
Angela,
say,
did you
Sister
find-
Camille, whether maybe Ubiquity does somewhat draw that student who is so-called conscious. Now someone has taken a term from our community which was called woke and has bastardized that term. But all that term ever meant was to be conscious of your history,
That's right.
your community,
That's
your
right.
elders. And
That's
I'm
right.
speaking of my elders. I don't want to disparage any elder,
That's right.
And I have heard this conversation. I'm sorry when I take over discussions, but yes, we do have an elder. My mother's mom, Andrew Pascal, who was a Du Boisian scholar and who helped establish the DuSable Museum in Chicago, Illinois, with
Oh,
Dr. Margaret Burroughs. So, from a very young age, Sister Mawlyah spoke of the autobiography of Malcolm X. I was given Malcolm X's biography. I was given um, Paul Robeson's speeches. I was
oh,
given by my mother a copy of The Color Purple, and she wanted me to read it, and then came back to me. And as a girl, as a
Mhm,
woman, what
mhm.
did you learn from that?
I love it.
But
I
I don't want to
love it.
make that rare for the Black
Mhm.
community.
I love
Everywhere
it.
in the Black community, we have elders who
That's
are
right.
teaching, we have
That's
elders
right.
who are preaching, we
That's
have
right.
elders who are mentoring.
Mhm.
So anyone can come into Ubiquity and understand the union of the Black man and the Black woman,
That's right.
the
Tiffany,
importance of the Black family. I'm
now what I
done.
want to do is I want to give Angela an opportunity
Yes, ma'am.
to answer that question.
It's not
So
even a
what
question.
was
It's a
your
statement.
Not
question,
Tiffany.
Camille?
Let's hear from
Camille,
Angela.
what
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
what was the question?
So what I wanted to
I
know is
already asked
because
this.
you none it seems that you were pretty conscious from the 6th grade, from the 8th
Mhm.
grade. You were conscious. So you got to Howard and Ubiquity, the outreach was not hard for you. Did you find when you were on trial? So we call joining or
Oh yes.
trying to join Ubiquity is a
Thank you.
process called a trial period. During that trial period, we are, as we join the organization, called ABCderians, meaning those that are coming into the knowledge of Ubiquity, right? So with all that Tiffany read on the flyer, did you find when you were an ABCderian, did you find that those principles, those values, were you experiencing that when you were on trial?
So I'm gonna, yeah, absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely. Short answer,
Mhm.
yes, but I want to expand a little bit on that. So on my trial, there are 6 women. There were 6 women and 1 man. And rest in peace to our brother Brent Terry. He was the brother who was on our trial, who passed away a couple of years ago. And Brent was even though he was our brother on trial, he was
Yeah.
also our big brother. He
Hmm.
was the oldest on the trial, and he took care of us, right? He was someone who we could talk to during trial. He had the car, so whenever we had to get somewhere,
He had the car. That's
we packed in
important.
that car.
He
That's
had the
important.
car.
It sure
It's
is.
important. He packed us. We packed on in there. He would cook for us. We would
Mhm.
just talk. And I'm going to
Mhm.
go beyond just how this extended beyond just trial
Mhm.
into that family
Yeah.
beyond an organization.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I was so I have my PhD, and when I was in the last stages of writing my dissertation,
Mm.
I was stuck, and I just couldn't. I was just stuck with just finalizing it, finishing it up. Brent
Mm.
said, "You know what? Come on campus." He was in social work in
Yeah.
grad school. He said, "Come on campus, and we're going to have a conversation."
Yeah.
And we talked, and
Mm.
he just explained to me how to look at this data, how to analyze the data, and he just
Mm.
helped me become unstuck in that
Mhm.
process and
Yeah.
allowing me to finish.
Yes.
I go on to another sister, Jaha Ife Aziza, and she came. She represents that in the sense of when I lost my sister, my blood sister,
Mhm.
my mother, she was there.
Yes.
She came up from DC to Connecticut. She was there. When I lost my father, our brother, not my trial brother, but another Ubiquitarian, he came and was there for me.
Yes.
And he passed away. His name is escaping me right now, but I'm seeing his face Like, right, I'm seeing him there. He gave me his coat. He said, I know it's chilly. Put your coat, put this coat on. But I saw Ubiquity, and I see Ubiquity in my life.
Yes.
Even with Malia, who just came to visit a while ago from DC. First of all, Malia is my trial chair.
Yeah, also trial chair.
Okay. Okay.
And you
Co-chair
know,
along with Niambi, Waltrina.
Yes, me and Waltrina. So Malia and Waltrina are my trial chairs. And I can tell you, me and Malia met up about a month or so ago. And just seeing Malia, I felt so comfortable just talking with her about some things that I'm going through and just being vulnerable. And it felt so good because it's like sometimes, you know, we carry so much and it's hard to have someone that you could just kind of like, look, this is what I'm going through. And I could shed a tear and feel comfortable. And Malia, I was able to do that just naturally.
Wow. Yes.
And I think about just the Ubiquitarians throughout the years. Like, I have godchildren via Ubiquitarians. You know, so yes, to answer your question, the love of the family was shown as ABCderians and beyond.
Awesome. Malia.
Yes.
Well, Malia's an only child too, so I'm sure.
I was raised as an only child, so that family aspect was huge for me.
Did you find it when you got to campus and you discovered Ubiquity, when you were on trial, the principles and values that Tiffany read in that flyer? Did you experience that when you were an ABCderian?
I did somewhat, but to me, it was a way more evident after the trial period. Trial was like, you in the fire, you just trying not to get hurt. You just right? You ain't really thinking about am I well done? Like you just so it was different. But I will say, prior to me finding Ubiquity, I do want to share that I didn't find it alone. Having come to Howard as a 17-year-old freshman from Detroit, and I was green, I was raised real sheltered. I did not have a television, y'all. I didn't get my first TV until somebody who's actually another ABCderian bought me a TV in college. So I had a very different type of upbringing. But my two best buddies in fine arts at the time were Keisha Carroll, who's also 17 from Michigan. Our mothers met each other on freshman orientation, and we have been friends ever since. And Christina Moore, who was also in the art department with me. So all three of us were in fine arts, and we started seeing these flyers and this information together. So we actually attended the first open house together and came on to trial together.
Nice.
I didn't share this before, but I did want to say about Brent Terry, just a funny story about Brent Terry, who's also my inspiration. He encouraged me to come back and finish my bachelor's after lingering around for almost 14 years and not completing.
Wow.
You taught us so much about this, that, and the other. Why don't you practice what you preach? Why don't you finish what you start? And I was like,
okay.
So I went back to school and I knocked it out in 3 semesters, things I had lingered because I started a family. I paused for different things and was working professionally and doing. I thought, well, I didn't think I needed a degree. But he's like, just finish what you start. And he encouraged me. But a funny story about their trial process, because not only was he the oldest, he was a master's. Hadn't he finished his master's? He was a professor, an adjunct professor for my trial co-chair. So I had him for some classes or something, and he was also the RA at the dormitory that she stayed in Meridian Hall. So it would be real crazy. I caught her calling him Mr. Terry or Professor Terry, something like that. I was like, hey, if you can call him Mr. Professor, because the eldership and community that trumped everything else. And I was like, well, look, he's in this process. We want him to take it seriously, which he did. We didn't have to boss up too much and wait around. But it's hard enough. You like young 20, barely out of your teens, trying to 20 something, trying to run trial and have people, who could be your parents, basically on trial under you. So
can I say something real fast? I just want. Can I say something real fast? I just want to call up Dave Mosheer's name. That was the brother.
Uncle Dave.
My father.
I wish we were able to do some libations.
Yes. So I do want to call up Dave.
I say.
For him. But
on a future podcast, we can call some ancestors. I think that here's a suggestion. We could call some ancestors, both Ubiquity ancestors, Howard University ancestors, and just our ancestors.
That was just for that story I was talking.
That would be a very good podcast. to have their
Yes.
Yeah,
pictures
Dave,
and to talk about them.
yeah, that's beautiful.
Absolutely.
So with all that we just discovered, this was just beautiful, beautiful conversation. Can you all define what a trial chair is as it relates to
Woo,
Ubiquity?
woo. I want to jump in.
And
I shared.
and
Yes,
and
ma'am. Give me
within
the
that
other point.
description, within that, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Nope.
Oh,
And
and
within that
within that description
description,
about what is a trial chair, okay, within that description,
Tiffany, you got 2
how did
minutes.
you become the one to be a trial chair during your period? Yeah. So description and how
okay,
did you become the chosen one?
120
Please,
seconds. A trial period in
not
Ubiquity,
possible, but go ahead. Go ahead.
and is a period where the person joining the Ubiquity, the ABCderian, is in the process of learning about Ubiquity. The Ubiquitarians, who are those always in search of knowledge, are
Mhm.
seeking information about the ABCderians.
Can you say that one more
Um,
time? I love that. Ubiquitarians are
the ABCderians are
always,
those who are in the process of learning about ubiquity and about life.
and
Right?
ubiquitarians are
And
always,
the ubiquitarians are those who are in all places and all times, and we're also always seeking knowledge.
always
So
seeking
both,
knowledge.
always seeking knowledge. So both
Always
are
seeking
seeking
knowledge.
information and knowledge and experience about one another. And I had
Yes.
to learn as a ubiquitarian that it was not just giving orders and rules and assignments to abecedarians and they have to do what I say when I say. That's not what this process is about. Again, I want to say not comparing it to any other organizations because there are many other organizations in the African American community that also use intake processes. I want to refer people who may be watching, if they have not, to read Stolen Legacy by our ancestor scholar to learn about the mystery systems. I'll leave it at that. So these are not new processes. They come from Africa. And they are Afrocentric processes. So there's always the apprentice and there's always the scholar or the person who is teaching. So we learn from one another. So as a responsible trial chairperson, I'm putting activities on campus that will attract young adults on campus, um, such as Nguzo Saba Week, which was established with my trial period. Um, each day of Nguzo Saba Week is one of the activities for the principles of the Nguzo Saba. Look those up. We
Can you
learned
can you
those
say
during
can you say
Kwanzaa.
what that is? 'Cause this is a we're
The
opening this
principles
podcast up.
celebrated during Kwanzaa. So people have heard of the principle, heard of the holiday of Kwanzaa, and there is a principle celebrated on each day of Kwanzaa. We transition that to make a Nguzo Saba week. So each day of Nguzo Saba week, we celebrate one of those principles, from unity to faith. Um, and once students on Howard's campus or elsewhere express an interest in Ubiquity, they begin a several week process of interacting with the organization to see if the organization is something they want to commit to permanently. And my responsibility, I think, as a trial chairperson, I thought about this, was to make sure the ABCderians are safe. Malia just mentioned that she was 17 years old when she entered Ubiquity, making sure that they're safe. So making sure that they are transported to and from their activity, making sure it's an activity where they are not physically, mentally, socially, emotionally harmed, making sure it's a fun activity, making sure that there's respect in the activity. And it could be music, it could be art, it could be dance, it could be going to a museum. So they are always in the process of learning as abecedarians, and we are interacting with them as ubiquitarians who might become members of our organization.
Can I ask that of Angela as well?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sure. So I became so again, I joined Ubiquity in 1997 as a freshman. So I was 18. I turned 19. So I became a trial chair the following year. I've been a trial chair 3 times: 1998, 2002, 2005. So while I was at Howard and even as a graduate, um, I was co-chair with my trial brother Brent. And what So when I came on into Ubiquity in '97, there were a few of us who were on campus, and it was our me and my 7 brothers and sisters. So shout out Tora, Eden, and Dana, who names I haven't mentioned yet. But shout out to Lasana, that's our trial name. We each had a position, so we came in and we were expected to lead.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I was privileged and honored to have been bestowed the trial chair. And I will say this, for every year that I've been a trial chair, for every year that I've mentored or supported other trial chairs, my goal, in addition to what has already been stated in terms of helping ABCderians learn about Ubiquity, was also helping ABCderians learn about themselves,
Mm-hmm.
helping ABCderians learn about themselves as a group, as a collective, in how their group dynamics will merge with Ubiquity as an organization and as a family. And I saw my job as being able to facilitate that addition to our family, making sure that the ABCderians knew how to run an organization, making sure the ABCderians were connected as a family themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure that the ABCderians had opportunities to grow culturally, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, within themselves and within each other, that there was truly a bond being formed.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that, and we take that still very seriously, because that is what keeps the family going.
That's right.
Having, like, my sister Dana, my trial sister Dana, very, very close, and she just being there to like support and be the encourager, like, okay, this is what we need to do. If you have ideas, bring them to the family. It was all in support of the ABCderians, all in support, of course, of Ubiquity and keeping Ubiquity going.
That's right. Malia.
You're on mute.
Wait a minute, we can't hear you. You got
My
on
bad.
mute.
I had a little background noise. There was drag racing going on. I live in my community.
Okay.
Drag racing going on. Detroit is notorious for it. So as I answer the what is a trial chair question, I also want to kind of share like how the mechanism of how people become trial chairs.
Okay.
Whatever I'm allowed to share. All right. So to me, I visualize, and I've been fascinated by motherhood and the birthing process my whole life. Almost all of my art and all of my paintings have that as some kind of underlying theme, either fertility or motherhood or birthing. And so I view it almost as surrogates. The trial chair, single chair, co-chairs act as surrogates, and they are basically carrying these folks in their vessel to carry these folks into the U for the benefit of the whole family. The parents are Ubiquity. The parents are Ubiquity. So it's all of us. So it's not a process where it's completely autonomous. And how we become trial chairs, in some cases, depending on how many people are left on campus, it's just y'all two, y'all the trial chairs. Okay, y'all the only 2 left on campus right now. Everybody's graduated, moved on, or So, and in other cases, the family might nominate someone. There could actually be a potential vote if there are multiple people who are interested in the role. Then there might actually have to be a vote to decide who becomes trial chair. But I do like the idea too that we kind of started growing further in the 90s. I want to say from Angela Mawia's year onward, where we had more like trial committees. So like not much fell on one person, especially as you had some larger trials. I don't know how they did it back in the day with y'all, Ada and Camille, where it was like 20, 30, 40 people on a trial period and one trial chair. That was nuts. I don't even know how y'all did that, but
no, we had 17, so we had 2 trial chairs.
It was co-chairs.
John them had the 50 million, 60s, 50 people coming in when they first started in the 70s, early 80s. But by the time we got to 85, it was 2 trial chairs.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So if it started in the 80s, that's more practical. And so I think the trial committee kind of helped to, just manage the logistics of the process. You're dealing with a bunch of humans, adults who are managing school, managing schedules, managing community service activities, putting on programs, all sorts of things. Because while the trial process is going on, Ubiquity still has to run as an organization. So like we're still doing stuff. It's not like we just put the brakes on all on-campus activity just to run a trial.
And you're still in school. You're still in school.
Yeah, you're still in school yourself, or might be working in school or have a family. Yeah. And so that's the case with a lot of stuff. Yeah. So those were some interesting dynamics.
So what does the I mean, when you start child care, you have to plan everything. You have to balance your life in school. You have to. I mean, how did that seems overwhelming.
I will
How was
add.
that managed?
I will kind of share something that Sister Angela and I talked about on another occasion, where she viewed it as almost an internship or an apprenticeship, like Akitah mentioned, the apprenticeship. You're basically learning on the job. It's on the job learning. And so whoever might have
OTT, OJT, on job
OJT,
training.
pretty much. While you're not just left out there just thrown in the deep end. Usually, it's somebody who might have led a trial period a year or two before you, or whatever, was there to kind of guide you through, and so you're not left in a lurch. And then sometimes you're co-chaired, and your co-chair might have a little bit more experience than you. In the case of myself and Niambi Waltrina, who led Angela in the 1997 trial period, I've been in for 7 years, and she had been in 2 years prior to them. So she was somewhat newer, but learning and getting the experience while we worked together, sharing that role. So,
And can I
I
emphasize?
agree with Malia. We often said, being a trial chairperson, you're back on trial.
Mhm.
Yep.
So the shoe is on the other foot.
Mhm.
And you are also in the process of learning,
Mhm.
while the ABCderians are in the process of learning.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah,
think that
because you
is a
have all these
humbling,
personalities. You got
right.
personalities and
This is a
skills.
humbling experience for you as a so-called leader, as a
Mhm.
leader. It's not even so called. And I
Mhm.
have to go back to that I often thought about the safety of my ABCderians and Ubiquitarians.
Mhm.
Um, so someone mentioned that in a previous conversation, that sometimes I would ask my husband, who was not a Howard student, who
Mhm.
was not a member of Ubiquity, to come to events, and maybe a couple of his homies would show up. And what was really going on is I wanted the event to be safe. I didn't want someone to show up and say, "Oh, I wasn't admitted, and I'm going to stand outside and do something physically to this group,"
Mhm.
because that unfortunately does happen sometimes. So oftentimes we were in the process of learning ourselves. But I think I would say it's a very valuable experience. It's a very valuable experience for
Life.
anyone,
Yeah, it's a life experience.
to have that responsibility over 10 or 20 people, over event planning, scheduling, transportation, food service.
Mhm.
I have to make sure we have something to eat. Is anyone going to send a tray of chicken? This is kind of what it comes down to when you're leading an organization or an event like that.
And I want to emphasize, especially how I approached being a trial chair, is that it was the family bringing in this trial,
Mhm.
and I was the spokesperson, so to speak. I was the facilitator, the lead, yes, but it
Mhm.
was really a family effort. So not only was it a matter of organizing events for the ABCderians, it was also organizing meetings and programming with Ubiquitarians to ensure that we produce the best experience for the
Mhm.
ABCderians. Again, an experience that will get them ready to come into Ubiquity and take and carry it forward.
Mm-hmm. We lost Camille. I mean, see. Okay, I'll bring her back on. Okay. What was your open house process like? What was it like to bring? What was the process, or what were you looking for bringing people in your initial open house when you're starting a trial period on campus? I know we can't go into the logistics of what is involved in trial, because we don't want to get that out. But what was the process for the open house when you're recruiting, when you're trying to bring people into the family? What were you looking for?
I will start by
Welcome back,
saying
Camille.
that the
Go ahead,
open
Angela.
house was really a culmination
Mhm.
of a year worth of programming.
Yep.
So it
Yeah.
was all of the programming throughout the year that we hoped would attract the right people.
Right. Right.
And one thing I
What
would
is the right
say is
people?
the right people are the people who were attracted to Ubiquity. The people who, yeah, the people who saw the principles lived out through our activities, through our programming, through seeing and knowing and meeting and knowing Ubiquitarians. They would see who and what we were just in that experience. And if that resonated with them, we were confident that that would bring those individuals to the open house. Now, yes, there is an application process to becoming an ABCderian. So there is, a means by which we determine if this individual is a proper fit for the organization. But in terms of marketing, our programming, again, was the attraction. There are Ubiquitarians who also share. They joined Ubiquity because they knew other Ubiquitarians and they saw how we interacted. Some were roommates with Ubiquitarians and they were like, oh, I see how you all interact. You all are truly a family. I want to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they became aware of our programming,
Mm-hmm.
or then they joined or they came to the open house. We had a Guzasaba week, again, 7 programs based on each principal. And the culminating day was the open house.
I need to ask a question. I need to jump in if I might, because when Ada and I were talking to a lot of the current Ubiquitarians on campus and some founders and some old heads, if you will, we're seeing that in the last 10 years there were only 3 young men who actually joined Ubiquity and became Ubiquitarians, and we want to know why, what's happening.
It used to be fluttered with men and women coming in, equally. But now it's like women are up here, and it's harder to recruit
So
men.
when you're saying those who are attracted to the organization, it's not that Black men aren't attracted to the organization, or is it? Or your thoughts on that, please.
I'll jump in. Let me jump in for that. Okay. So I will say because that's something I've been acutely aware of for the last couple of decades. And there were things we tried to do, such as holding activities in Drew Hall and holding activities in the Carver and place where men would be.
Yeah.
And I will say, really, because Ubiquity is a microcosm of Howard University's campus, Ubiquity Howard chapter, we're only in this one location now, that we just kind of represent, and the body and who we're attracting is kind of representing the student body. There were some statistics that came out recently. Saturday Night Live even did a spoof about it, saying that there's a 26% male enrollment across all HBCUs. And I'm not sure how it ranks in that, but that's one reason is that decline. Part of it is economics. Part of it could be recruiting. Part of it could be, I think a good deal of it is economics. And in recruiting, I don't remember there being as strong of an HBCU outreach as there was in the 80s and 90s. There were like HBCU bus tours, and they were just shipping kids all across the country straight from high school. Also, when there's a de-emphasization. De-emphasis on.
I like emphasization. That's a good word.
There's a de-emphasis in general on college education. And so there's more of an emphasis on skilled trades and vocational education. And you can't even be mad at it. But if I can get 6 figures from waste management and not have $40,000 in student loans, I'm all for it. And my husband happens to be somebody, he's a working class man. He's in retail management. He doesn't have the, as many degrees as I have, but he has a lot more freedom and time and flexibility and benefits, and don't have debt. He doesn't have student loan debt. And then same thing with my father. My mom has a doctorate. My father did it, but they were able to make almost the same amount of money because professors, unfortunately, don't make a whole lot. You don't make a whole lot in education. So I think there are a lot of dynamics that have contributed to the decline of the Black males within Howard's campus. One thing I will say that Ubiquity has done over the years is coordinate and collaborate with other organizations that might have had a stronger male presence to kind of balance ourselves out. We've co-hosted programs with Black Nia Force, who was very prevalent in the 80s. And at one point, they were majority male and a handful of women. Another organization called Black, which is a Cometan kind of spiritual basis organization. The
Kwame Ture Society.
Malcolm X Grassroots is more community based, but I know we've done things with them before as well. So I think that's some kind of way to balance it out. And I'd say it's a quality over quantity thing, because the brothers we do have, even though it's not a tremendous amount of them, these are ride and die brothers. You can count on anything you need. If I call them today, be like, Granny needs your help. Hop on the plane, come to Detroit. They would come, and they've only met me once. Or, we communicated by Zoom, but they are ride or die brothers. So if you're going to have just a few brothers, you want some really strong ones like Sterling Brown. Right. If you ever heard that Sterling Brown poem called Strong Men.
Come on.
Oh, yes.
That's my inspiration.
I'm going to put that on my social media. I want to piggyback on what Sister Malia is saying from the social work perspective, mental health perspective. That's my profession. There's an article that Morgan State recently dropped on their website No diss to our brothers and sisters up on I-95 North,
Okay.
Morgan State University. It says, in response to the alarming decline in Black male enrollment at Morgan State University,
Saw that.
Maryland's largest
Yeah.
HBCU, there's a presidential task force that their president has formed.
Mm.
Presidential task force on the state of Black male enrollment
Mm-hmm.
at Morgan. And it goes on
Mm-hmm.
to say the formation of the task force follows the release of recent data from the American Institute of Boys and Men, which highlights a 25% drop in Black male enrollment at HBCUs since 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So, just in brief,
Mm-hmm.
what Sister Malia is stating is a factual um, occurrence.
Mm-hmm.
There are multiple
How
social.
concerned, how
Yes, go ahead.
concerned are we about this? How concerned are we? Given what Malia said about the economic realities of being a Black man,
Go ahead.
having debt, etc., how concerned are we about this?
I mean,
That,
Angela,
that
you're
our,
an
that our young
educator.
Very
girls
concerned. I apologize. I was looking for this link earlier. I found it.
Uh-huh.
We're all very concerned. I
Mhm,
believe there are so many
mhm,
organizations that
mhm,
preceded Ubiquity.
mhm.
One of them, some of our brothers are members of Concerned Black Men.
That's right.
There are organizations that have come before that have
Mhm.
attempted to intervene with our young Black men and
Yeah.
fathers
Mhm,
in our communities and
mhm,
strengthen them and uphold them. But
mhm,
I want to go back to what Ubiquity said in 1973, that their
mhm,
goal was to strengthen the relationship
mhm.
between Black men and Black women. It marvels me, it
Mhm,
marvels my imagination that in
mhm,
1972 and 1973, some
mhm.
18 and 19 and 20-year-old young
That's
men and
right.
women at Howard
Yeah.
University had enough wisdom and foresight to look into the
Mhm.
future and, well, look into the present of the Black
Yeah.
community and then see the future, and say
Mhm.
that their goal was to first and foremost improve the relationship between
Drum
Black
roll.
men and Black women. It is it is
That's
a
right.
marvel. It is a
Mhm.
marvel.
Yeah.
And it is
Mhm.
so important. Again, I want to say for anyone watching, this takes nothing away from our Black fraternities, sororities, Masonic organizations, Odd Fellows, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, taking nothing away from those organizations at all.
That's
I
right.
am married to a man who is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. He is a loyal member of the Prince Hall Masonic Organization. Prince Hall, if you look at that history, I'm dropping history, look that up. These are organizations that are seeking to bring men into
Yep.
leadership.
Mhm.
We're
Yep.
not in war against one another. We
That's
are
You
right.
in
can
war
join
together.
Ubiquity. You can be a
You
part
And
of
can
let me
join
just
Ubiquity.
say,
Ubiquity as a man, and we are going to come
I am
behind you, and we're in war together.
and for
Men
the
Mhm.
are not
record,
my enemy,
mhm.
men are
Right.
my brothers.
That's
Yep.
And for
right.
the record, I do want to say I'm a proud member of the illustrious Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Oh, that's right. So just want to make yes, we are part of various organizations.
That's
Yes.
We're
right.
doing we're doing
Yeah,
the
and,
same
and that
work
and that's the
and
thing.
with different weapons.
That's the love of Ubiquity. You can be, like we've discussed before, another podcast. You can be a member of fraternity, sorority, Masonic, whatever, and still be in Ubiquity. You can still
Yes,
serve
absolutely.
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
uphold those pillars. Yeah.
Now, listen, we're actually going to come back. We don't have maybe less than 10 minutes left for this
Yes,
particular
ma'am.
episode. And
Yes,
I wish
sister.
we could do it. We actually could do a whole nother hour with us right here because there's so much more to discuss. And so, just to let you guys know, we do have an episode that we will be programming that deals with Black men, save our sons, because it's important to who we are as a people. And so my next question, and brief please because we don't have a lot of time. I want to know, so with the ubiquitarian principles and the Nguzo Saba, the things that you learned on campus, did you take them into your professions, and was that challenging for each of you?
Um,
Angela, you want to start, Angela? I'm
I'll,
sorry.
oh, go ahead, Angela.
Oh, no, Malia, you can go ahead.
Yeah,
I would
I would
agree
say
with
I definitely took my work into my profession. And one thing I will say, Ubiquity planted so many seeds in me in terms of my professional life. And academic, not just academic excellence, but that academic excellence focus translated into professional excellence and translated into doing something that matters in the community, something that's going to make a difference, lifting brothers and sisters up, being in a mentorship type role, no matter what you do. I'm thrilled that the team I serve on right now is 15 of us, all African American. And Detroit is pretty diverse. I could pretty much hire anybody, but all African American. I'm sorry, except for one brother from Algeria. We call him from Africa. I have to remind them, don't call me Arab, whatever. You're North African, whatever. You're African, okay? So we are all people of color and brilliant. And my team is like split 50-50, brothers and sisters, highly educated. And I think the work that we're doing, helping people who've pretty much been forgotten, the returning citizens and people who've been incarcerated, men and women formerly incarcerated, are a highly vulnerable population, especially in this climate, especially in the context of mass incarceration, and who knows what the future holds. And so us trying to give them back their power and give them back some agency and give them the support that they are not going to get from the society that put them there in the first place is hugely important to me. And so I think Ubiquity definitely played a role in that. From, it's one thing to get your community service hours because you got to get them and put them in a log. It's another to have that commitment and passion to do that and that in me, not just on the trial process, but over the years and the decades.
That's right.
So.
Yes, absolutely. Again, I joined Ubiquity as a freshman. Ubiquity helped to grow me. I at the time, I thought I was grown, but I look back now, I'm like, oh, I was a little baby. And, I grew up in Ubiquity, and my leadership skills, I learned many of those through Ubiquity. Organizational skills I learned through Ubiquity. The application of the principles in the work that I do, I first saw, one of the ways that I saw that was through Ubiquity. So whether it was aspects of our oath that I might repeat as a way to motivate me as I'm going through a particular thing at work, like, okay, let me reflect on, on some of those principles and let me apply it here. Sometimes I might be, stuck with something, like trying to figure something out. And believe it or not, I do think, what would so-and-so say or do in this situation? So I take inspiration from my Ubiquity brothers and sisters. And I know I've never said or shared that before, but I really do. I think of different people. I'm like, I gain strength and motivation through you all. I really do. So those are just a couple of ways, quickly that Ubiquity just resonates in me and through me in my work. And I'm so very appreciative for this blessing of Ubiquity. You mentioned earlier about those 19-year-olds founding Ubiquity, and it was a blessing. And I'm so thankful that they listened to that voice and that they did create this beautiful, beautiful family.
And they're listening to you now. Tiffany?
Wow. Mawlyah Omalara, I will say that.
Yes.
That's my grand sponsor.
I just one example. I know I can be lengthy. I just spoke to my sister-in-law, my husband's sister. So I'm married into this family. Speaking of a family, so my sisters-in-law and I are not adversaries. We're friends. And I just shared with her how my nieces and nephews have said, Aunt Tiff always made sure we came together to do Kwanzaa, and how there is a what we call that vision board we have of the family ancestors. I put their grandparents at the top and their parents and brought it down. And those projects we did when they were small, there are 30 somethings now, and they were literally sitting up at a family cookout, like teasing me, but I literally was crying because they were like, Aunt Tiff taught us family. Aunt Tiff taught us the principles of Kwanzaa. Aunt Tiff taught us Black history. So I'm the Black history aunt. And I had to really reflect on that and just thank God and thank my ancestors, thank my elders. As I said, Mawlyah Omalara. I could name other names. We'll maybe do that at another time. Who, as I said, had that vision and taught that and it passed to me, and I have passed it to another generation of young people.
Mhm.
And I'm grateful my nieces and nephews learned from that. I'm very grateful. It's
I
an
want
honor. It's a privilege.
I want in the last minute, I want us to recall the names of other Ubiquitarians who may be here or who may have transitioned, who may be ancestors, or who have impacted our lives as we've sojourned as Ubiquitarians. We can call their names now if you remember their names.
Okay,
People
Corey
I'll
Lynch.
name mine. I'll let
Yes.
someone else go.
Call them, just call them.
Dave,
Oh,
Everybody's
okay.
call them
Frank
names.
Terry,
Blaine
Blaine.
Ted.
Mm-hmm.
Corey Lynch,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
David
All the names.
Moshier,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Dave.
Dave.
Dave. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bro,
Mm-hmm.
Uncle
So you know
Dave,
what, y'all?
um,
I don't want to interrupt this beautiful, but I mean, we typically, this reminds me, like I said, being around the tree, holding hands, doing the pledge, because I think that tree ceremony is beautiful. And I think the tree symbolism in the center of the yard on Howard's campus is beautiful. Tiffany, we were talking, girl, you were talking about Wakanda and how this has some relationship to Wakanda, and how that reminds you some of the processes, the African processes. I say that because that needs to relate to the average citizen who's not internal into the family, how they can relate to that as an example.
I'll try to tell it briefly. So, for those of us that at least saw the very first Black Panther um, Marvel film, as I was sitting there watching, I did reflect on Ubiquity. Um, Killmonger, he very much wanted to come into the family and dominate. He wanted to take over. He wanted to show his power and his strength. But he did not have the spirit of the family. That's a phrase that we use, the spirit of the family. He wanted people to submit to him because he was very insecure about his position in the family because of what had occurred with his father and T'Challa's father. But T'Challa had the spirit of the family. And T'Challa, even in the realm of the ancestors, corrected his own father and said, Dad, what went down was wrong, yo. Like that was real booty. But if you think about it, that is any Black family. We have that struggle. No matter what Black family you're talking about, there's a struggle. Man, there's a struggle between the elders, the two cousins that never really got along. Y'all rolling down the
Come
hill,
on.
fighting each other. Like
Come
we
on.
can't turn away from that, and we
That's
have
right.
to face that. And T'Challa said, "I'm going to face this." And even though we knew there were other things to happen in the sequel, etc., he had to protect his family. He had to protect his family. Because one person came up in there that had a wrong spirit. The old church people used to speak about your spirit being wrong. And that if he had come in there like let's build this up and let's take this over, cousin, that would have been a different spirit. But he came in with an incorrect spirit. So I thought about that as Ubiquity, we don't come in hopefully trying to dominate ABCderians and make them submit to us and they have to etc. Build up our ego. We are one family. In this family, we are one. For the love of each other is the name of this
love
broadcast.
of each other.
So I will tie it up there. Go back and look at Black Panther 1 and 2.
And on that note, we have to wrap. But we have to come back and do this again. Please promise me, sisters, that we will come back and do this again.
This was
Thank you for listening, everyone.
There's so many other angles, the education angle, the mental health angle, the interest tree. I mean, all of you all by yourselves are a show. Whole show.
So I thank my
I'm
sister
sorry.
Angela.
I had to give my dog a peanut butter treat for being quiet during the
thank my sister
broadcast.
Did I just see peanut butter on camera?
I thank my sister Malia.
Thank you.
And
thank
I
you.
thank my sister Ada and Camille. We are the hosts of Ubiquity for the love of each other. And we'll see you next Saturday.
For the love of each other.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Ubiquity for the love of each other. Peace.
All right, peace.
Peace and blessings.
Tutu and Nana.
Tutu and Nana.
Tutu and Nana.